All right, welcome, future dental professionals. I'm Professor Munir Gohar Babar, and today we are going to dive into a topic that's, well, it's pretty much the bedrock of your entire careers, the epidemiology of dental caries. And look, this isn't just about drilling and filling cavities. It's about getting to grips with a massive global health crisis from the inside out.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. Think of it like a journey, right? We're going to start with the absolutely staggering scale of the problem. Then we'll decode the disease itself and the tools we use to actually measure it. From there, we'll map its impact all across the globe and through a person's entire life. We'll dig into its deep social roots, and then we'll wrap up by looking at your crucial role in the fight for health equity.
All right, first up, just how big is this problem really? Well, we often call it a silent epidemic. And that's because, despite its massive scale, it just doesn't get the headlines. It's often just a footnote in those big global health conversations. So let's try and change that starting right now. I want you to take a second and just really let this number sink in. 3.5 billion. The World Health Organization estimates that oral diseases affect nearly 3.5 billion people. I mean, that is almost half the entire planet. And you know what the main culprit is? Untreated dental caries. That makes it, by far, the most common non-communicable disease in the world, period.
And this is the central puzzle that we as a profession need to solve together. Here's the thing, we know what causes caries. We absolutely know how to prevent it. So the big question is, why does it keep raging on like a global pandemic? Cracking this code, that's going to be fundamental to your practice.
Okay, so to really tackle this disease, we've got to learn to speak its language. And what that means is understanding the science behind it and knowing the tools we use to track it on a global scale. This is the language of dental public health.
So at its very heart, dental caries is this dynamic battle that's constantly happening inside the mouth. It's so much more than just a cavity. It's a whole process, right? It all starts when bacteria in our mouths have a feast on the sugars from our diet. They produce acid as a byproduct, and, well, that acid then attacks the hard tissues of our teeth, our enamel, and dentin. This leads to demineralization, and if it's not stopped, eventually decay.
So how on earth do we track this on a massive, population-wide scale? Well, we use something called the DMFT Index. You're going to get very familiar with this. It's basically the gold standard for epidemiologists. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful tool that just counts the number of decayed, missing, and filled teeth for each person. But here's the key thing to remember. A DMFT score isn't just a snapshot in time. Nope. It's a permanent record of a person's entire lifelong battle with caries.
All right, now that we have our tools, let's put them to work. Let's start mapping the global landscape of this disease. Where in the world is the burden of caries really felt the most heavily? Okay, take a look at this. This chart tells a really powerful story. Let's break it down together. See the blue bars? They represent the sheer number of cases. And you can see right away that the WHO's Southeast Asia and Western Pacific regions, they're carrying an enormous burden. But now look at the orange dots. Those show the prevalence, the percentage of the population affected, and that reveals something even more striking. The prevalence is high everywhere, from 25% all the way up to 34%. This isn't just a regional issue, not at all. It's a full-blown global crisis.
And this brings us to a really important concept we call Caries polarization. The best way to think of it is like a seesaw. So while high-income countries are gradually bringing their caries rates down, the burden is shifting. And now, low and middle-income countries are facing what's essentially a tsunami of new cases. And what's fueling this? It's the flood of cheap sugar into these markets, combined with massive population growth.
So, who's most at risk? The answer might actually surprise you. See, caries isn't just some childhood disease you grow out of. In many ways, it's a lifelong companion, and our risk profile, it totally evolves as we age. So let's take a look at the life course of this disease.
The research really points to three key moments of vulnerability in our lives. First, you've got early childhood caries, or ECC, in our youngest patients. Then, we see a second wave that hits young adults right in their early 20s. And finally, there's a third, often hidden peak of root caries that emerges in our older patients.
Let's just zoom in on that first peak for a second. We're talking about 530 million children around the world suffering from early childhood caries. Let me put that in perspective. It's the single most common chronic disease of childhood. It absolutely dwarfs even asthma. And the impact, it's just devastating. It affects a child's ability to eat, to sleep, to concentrate, and even to learn. And now for that third peak. You see, as we're all living longer and, thankfully, keeping our teeth for longer, a new threat emerges: root caries. As our gums naturally recede with age, the softer, much more vulnerable root surfaces get exposed. This creates a whole new front in the battle against decay. Believe me, this is a growing challenge that you are absolutely going to face in your practice.
Okay, this brings us to the absolute core of our investigation today. We now know what caries is, where it is, and who it strikes. But to solve that big puzzle we started with, we have to ask the most important question of all: why?
If caries is preventable, why does this problem persist on such a massive scale? I want you to just sit with that question for a moment. The answer isn't in a textbook, and it's not in a lab. To find it, we have to step out of the dental clinic and into the world our patients actually live in.
This is the Dahlgren-Whitehead model, and it's such a powerful way to understand that health is about so much more than just our personal choices. The best way to think of it is like a set of Russian dolls. Right at the very center, you have the individual. But their health is shaped by all these layers around them: their community, their living and working conditions, and the broader society they're part of. And honestly, dental caries is a textbook example of this model in action. So here's the bottom line, and it's a tough one. Your zip code is a better predictor of your oral health than your genetic code. Poverty. It literally erects a wall between people and the care they need, from access to healthy food to simply being able to afford a visit to the dentist. Oral diseases are, at their very core, diseases of inequality. Knowledge really is power, especially when we're talking about oral health. You know, a parent's understanding of oral hygiene can make all the difference in the world for their child. And it's about more than just knowing to brush and floss. It's about having the confidence and the health literacy to navigate a really complex healthcare system and advocate for your family's health.
And you know, we also have to talk about the elephant in the room: the food industry. We live in a world where sugary drinks are often cheaper than bottled water, and candy is staring us down at every single checkout counter. This isn't an accident. It's a carefully crafted environment that makes the unhealthy choice the easy choice, and it's directly fueling the caries epidemic. And finally, there's the simple, stark fact that for so many people, a dentist is just completely out of reach. It doesn't matter if you live in a rural dental desert, miles from the nearest clinic, or if you live in a city and simply can't afford the bill. The result is exactly the same. A totally preventable problem becomes a painful, life-altering reality.
So, after all of this, where do we go from here? And maybe more importantly, where do you go from here? Because let's be clear, understanding the epidemiology of caries isn't just about passing an exam. It's about answering a call to action.
If you only take away 3 things from our time together today, please let it be these. Number 1, caries is a global pandemic on a scale that's almost hard to wrap your head around. Number 2, it is a disease of injustice. It preys on the most vulnerable people in our societies. And number 3, because its roots are social, our solutions have to be social too. We can't just drill our way out of this problem. So, I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Your work, it won't be confined to the 4 walls of your clinic. You'll be called to be an advocate, to be a voice for the voiceless, and to be a champion for health equity. So I ask you, how are you going to answer that call? How will you use your incredible skills and your future platform to help close the oral health gap? The future of oral health? Well, it's in your hands. Thank you.